We're going to construct a 2-hook clip down rig today, which is just a pretty bog standard rig in terms of sea fishing rigs. Just a 2-hook 2-hook flapper would just be as simple as it gets in terms of sea fishing, but this is actually the clip down version, which can help you gain that extra bit of distance. Some days that can be crucial. It can mean the difference between catching a fish and not. It's going to, again, an all-round hook 1.0. So it's a standard rig. This can be used for whiting, codling, bit of anything really. But yeah, we're going to use a couple of 1.0 bait holder hooks. First and foremost, what we need to do is to create the 2 snood lengths. This can vary according to what you want to create, essentially. If there's very little tide movement, you want to fish much longer snoods. So I'll just make some today. We got some 30-pound material for the snoods. It's about 0.55. The ones today I'm actually going to do at around, I would say, 40 centimeters or so, 40-45, so around 18 inches or so. And we're just going to cut two the same length. Doesn't have to be exact, but 2 around the same length. Next thing to do, and it's a lot easier if you have, just out of shot here, if you have all of your components on the desk ready to create these, makes life a lot easier. So we have some neoprene rig tubing, some Gemini neoprene rig tubing, and these are going to be the bait stops. So all we do is pass the snood length through and then through again. So it's basically creating a loop around the neoprene tubing. Just draw that tight and you'll find that it just creates a little bait stop, and that's perfect. You just move that around according to the size of the bait, and it doesn't damage the line at all because there's no knot under there. Basically, you just looped around a bit of neoprene. And that's what we do next is sequin. That just again helps with the bait. So if you've got a bulky bait, if you were to just use the neoprene, if you use a bulky bait, there's a chance of the bait still slipping over there. But essentially, that sequin trapped against that rig to the bait stop just stops any bait from sliding up. So what we then do is tie on the hook. Use whatever knot you prefer. I just use a very simple knot called the Davy knot, which is a really small knot. Just going to wet that, pull it in, pull that tag end. There you go. So that's all done. Just going to snip the excess. Snip it pretty tight. Have faith in your knot, but snip it pretty tight, because if you don't, what will happen is that the if you're sliding the bait up the line, the tag end will actually stop it from sliding up. What you can then do is just slide that bait stop down towards the eye, and then what you're left with is your snood. So it's going to create a second one. Again, on with the rig stop, the bait stop, in through, tighten it up. You can see it just bunches up. On with the sequin. On with the hook. You can do these again in batches. That can save a bit of time. Just going to do the Davy knot again. Pull that in tight. like so. Okay, that's our 2 snoods done. So again, it's a lot easier if you have all the components set out. So for the 2-hook clip down rig, I've actually got pretty much everything set out in front of me here, so we should be good to go. So for the rig body, I'm using some 80 pound 0.75 millimeter rig body. So that's all we do first of all, is just draw off a little bit and cut this tag end at an angle. Just makes it easier to slide on the components. And with this, we're going to work backwards. Okay, so we're going to actually work from the top down to the bottom. So this is all of the components are going to go on in reverse order. So it's a lot easier if you have everything on the desk in front of you to construct the rig as you go. You can just slide everything on. So what I've got here, I've got the tag end of the rig body. That's been again cut at an angle. So all we then do is start positioning things onto the rig body, and we're going to do this in reverse order. So essentially this is the end that we'll end up with the lead on. So at the top we need a crimp to begin with. It's a little crimp, then a bead, then a size 8 swivel, then a bead, and then we're going to use the little springs. I can't remember what they're called. I don't use these at full length. I actually cut them down to half length. I don't find that you need the full length, and essentially then you get two for the price of one. So then you just thread that on. At the bottom end of that, I'll place a really small small bead, like so. Crimp below that. You can see that's pretty much the top one. You imagine we're just going to crimp that down into place. That's the positioning and everything of that top one. We then have the bottom snood, and essentially this bottom snood is the one that will clip in the top snood. So it begins the same. You've got the crimp, if I can pick it up, crimp, bead, and then we're using one of the swivels that actually have a bait holder on it. It's got that bait holder section on it. The swivel incorporates the bait holder, and then pass that on, and below that we're actually going to use a slightly smaller bead, and there's a reason for that. If you use a big bead, essentially what you'll find is that the bead more or less holds out at a 90-degree angle, which is what you don't want. You actually want it tapering down with the rig body, because essentially then that holder is holding in position as it should be to hold the hook above, and also it's more of a streamlined position for that swivel. So after that, then you need the second half of that spring, another small swivel, small bead, if I can get it through there. Yep, like so. And then a crimp below that, then another crimp, a bead. It may sound confusing, but when you get into the flow of things, you know where you are. And actually you can stack these on the rig body as well, so actually you can just do without cutting it from the main spool. I'm still attached to the main spool here. You can just stack a load of these on there because the pattern will be the same, and then you can just make a load of them at the same time. Next thing is the breakaway bait shield, which is your clip. So pass that down and through, then onto the rubber, and then it's just whatever clip you're using to attach your lead. So I've just got one of the small rig clips. Just going to tie that on. Snip off the excess, like so. Okay, so if I slide everything down that I've just put on, you'll see everything in place and essentially what's going to be used to create this rig. And that is it in a nutshell. So that is the rig. That is the rig right there. So yeah, again, you can do to stack a few of these up, but that's pretty good to go. So I'm going to put one snood on here and then another snood on there, and then we're going to position them out. So first things first, let's bring the snood back into play, take that through, attach that onto there. Easy as that. Snip that excess. And then down to the other one, which has got the rig clip on. Like so. Just attach that. Draw it tight. Well, that's it done. Okay, next thing, we pull that rubber up onto the bait shield. Bit of a snug fit, but then it needs to be like so. With that in position, we can then lock this down. You can bring that back as close as you want, basically to that to where the lead's going to be positioned. I probably leave an inch or so, and then let's anchor that in place. So get your pliers and crimp that in place. So press the crimp enough that it's essentially not going to slide, but then don't over crimp it that it's going to damage the rig body, because that could end in disaster. So all we do then is that bottom hook, just clip it in there, because this will allow us to measure up from there. Just going to take a bit of line off the rig body material. What you'll find by doing it this way as well is that you don't lose or you don't waste any rig body material, because you're only using as much as you need each time. So we're just going to slide that up like so. With that hook in place on the bait shield, what you then do is draw it up, draw the two lines taut together, and then what you can do is crimp the bottom end of the snood in place. So just crimp that in place. And we're working in reverse order again, we're working up towards the top of the rig here. So that's fine there. With that in place, you can then, you'll see how these springs work. Essentially it gives you a bit of a margin for error, and also during casting it absorbs some of the shock, so it's less likely to actually throw the rig or throw the snoods off the holders. So, but in this instance it's actually giving us a bit of leeway, so if we are out a couple of millimeters either way, it's not going to matter. That spring is going to absorb that error essentially. So you want to bring that top crimp down, so you want it just, it's not really compressing that spring, but it's just holding that spring in place. When you've got that position, you need to crimp it. So that's the snood in place. You can see it there. Really neat, really neat. But you can see that bait holding swivel. What we're going to now do is pass the other hook, and we're going to place the top hook into that bait holder like so, and then again with a taut line we're just going to draw it up till we get to the top section like so. When you're happy with the positioning, what we're going to do is the same as we did down below, is secure that crimp in place. Like so. Happy with that. So crimp that in place. Bring down the top crimp. Bring down the top crimp. And again, when you're happy with the positioning, not compressing the spring, just holding the spring. Slide it back, crimp it. Then on the section above, when that's done, you can see all that's nice and neat again. When we go to the section above, clip that about 5 inches above. What we're going to then do is put a size 5 swivel at the top, and again you want that fishing fairly close to that top snood. You don't want excess length in the rig at this stage. And just tie that in like so, and that's the end of the rig. The rig is ready to fish with. So I'm just going to cut that excess off. So what you'll now find is, so that when you draw this down, it's going to clip in. So you've got that hook there clips onto there, perfect. Keep bringing it down, that hook there is going to clip on to there, perfect. What will then happen is, that's all streamlined when you're casting. When it hits the water, that's going to come off there, which will then kick that hook. That dropping will allow that hook to drop, and then both are free fishing. Hope that helps you, and it's definitely a rig worth tying up when you're next going out and need that extra little bit of distance. It's a couple of components you probably need to source, but when you do, the rig is a pretty straightforward one to construct. And I hope it brings you luck. Tight lines.